Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast. I'm Matt alongside my brother Nick. Nick, how are you doing today?
Great. Love talking Cleveland sports.
Yep, good to be back. Sorry everyone about the break, but we're ready to talk some Guardians and some Browns. So let's jump right in. Nick, give us an update on the Guardians. Not loving what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, so right now in the middle of May, May 12th to be exact, they're sitting 3.5 games behind the first place Minnesota Twins, who they've gotten off to a hot start, but the issue with the Guardians right now mostly is their batting. They're averaging about 2 runs per game, and when you're not scoring, you're not going to win many games. Uh, I know we've also had some different young faces on the mound, Logan Allen, um, and Tanner Bybee, who've actually shown some promise, and we're waiting to get Tristan McKenzie back closer to Memorial Day. I I know I said the batting is the issue, but maybe once he returns, getting a spark from him just on the field and in the clubhouse could get everybody going.
Yeah, I mean the bats have been terrible. They're last in home runs, they're last in runs, and I think depending on how you round the batting stats, they're either first or second or last in batting average, team batting average. Um, Strikeouts are very, very low, which is good as from a batting standpoint. I think they're second best in that department, but just about everything else, batting is terrible. But it is a weak division. They're only 3.5 out. They can turn around, and I think they will. But a lot needs to change. And you mentioned some of the troubles on the mound as well. They've had injuries and just some young guys coming up too. Like you said, Tristan McKenzie hasn't played yet. He looks to be a huge spark once he comes back end of May or early June. A highlight right now would be team ERA from this pitching staff that is wonderful year in and year out. They're ninth best in the league. So that's really what's kind of keeping them afloat right now. But like you said, bats really need to turn around and hopefully they will soon. But Nick, what do you think needs to happen for them to be able to do that?
Well, we heard, guys like Tom Hamilton and reporters say all the time, do what they did last year, and I know that's easier said than done, but they need to show more patience at the plate, and it's okay for the batters, whether you're Stephen Kwan at the top of the lineup who is very patient, or even if you're Jose Ramirez, a middle of the lineup guy who's got a powerful swing. Uh, I heard recently in the past couple games they had 9 strikeouts in a single game, which is just embarrassing. And show more patience, get guys on, and singles and doubles. We know this isn't a home run hitting team, but once you have the men on base, singles and doubles can get the job done, especially with the starting and bullpen staff that you have. One bright spot I'd like to point out: about a week ago, the Minnesota Twins came to Progressive Field, and the Guardians did win that series. So, despite we're sitting behind them, in any sport, you always want to have majority wins against your division foes. So, if they can just play the way they did against the Twins, against everyone else, one game at a time. They got the Angels tonight. Uh, they can really get back on a roll.
Yeah, it all it takes is sometimes one series to turn things around, it seems, especially with, still a very, very young team. I still think they're like triple A age or younger on average. Um, so don't want to hit the panic button, but definitely concerned. We haven't started the season. It seems where we left off, taking the Yankees to 5 games in the DS. So, it's time to bounce back, but you don't want to head into June, you know, eight games back or anything like that. You really got to keep it close, and hopefully with adding McKenzie, and if Savali can turn around once he comes back, again, that solves the pitching side, which has been pretty good, not quite as dominant as we saw last year, but maybe those things will help the bats out as well.
Yeah, and since we've mentioned that batting, there is one name I'd like to bring up. I know there's excitement about Mike Zunino, our catcher, and he has shown some signs of, getting multiple doubles in the game or even home runs. He got off to a hot start in the beginning of April against his former team, the Seattle Mariners. One name I'd like to see come up, and I think will come up at some point in the season, is another catcher, Bo Naylor, Josh Naylor's brother, and who I've heard, again, AAA is definitely different from the majors, but he's having a tremendous season, hitting the ball, throwing base stealers out, and that's going to be tough to adjust to with the new no shift rule. But I think when he does get his chance, it'll be exciting to see both brothers on the same team.
Yeah, definitely. And again, they've had to call up young guys a lot this season and in years past. So, we'll see. But just wanted to give everyone an update on that, and let's go sweep the Angels. That would definitely be a good thing. All right, we're going to move on to the Browns. The big NFL schedule release last night. Nick, first initial thoughts for the Browns schedule. What do you think?
Yeah, so keep in mind it's the second straight year of 17 games. And if you recall, because that's an odd number, the NFC last season started with 9 home games to 8 road games. Now they flip-flop it to all of the AFC teams, meaning the Browns as one of them getting 9 home games. And as we all know, the big story is Deshaun Watson making his full season start with the Cleveland Browns. And I noticed right away 3 of the first 4 matchups are division games. You got the Bengals in week 1 playing at Cleveland Browns Stadium. It's the first time in 7 years the Browns have started at home. So that's exciting. And, then they travel to Pittsburgh, and then you got the Titans in between, and then they travel, and then Baltimore comes to Cleveland. So that's just a small piece that I noticed. But also, what's interesting to me is the Browns face the AFC, not the entire AFC South this year, which is Watson's old division: the Titans, the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Colts. So I think it's interesting he got his new and old division foes in the same season.
Yep, and obviously you look at the early part of the season, especially hosting the Bengals. That Cincinnati's the best team in the division, although the Browns have had success against them. So we'll see. I mean, I love that that's a home game. That certainly helps. And then primetime in Pittsburgh, that's of course always tough going to Pittsburgh, but they got a young quarterback that I don't think they're perfectly certain about. Not that Deshaun proved that he's, what he is capable of doing years past, but assuming he is, I like the Browns' chances there. And then, Baltimore in week 4, like you said, with Lamar, he has his new contract and extension. They're putting all their faith in him. That's certainly going to be tough. But I don't know about the 49ers quarterback situation. That kind of seems up in there. And then following that, the Colts situation. They just drafted a new quarterback. So on the surface, it looks like it could be very difficult. But again, if the Browns start out 1-0, that would really be amazing, especially against a divisional opponent. I think just setting the bar high, with a win. Things can either get really good quickly for the Browns or really bad quickly. With one or with 2 or 3 divisional losses in the first 4 weeks, I mean, then you're talking about jobs being lost too. So, yes, I am anxious about the schedule, especially early on. But I think it's time to put up or shut up, and they'll have that opportunity to do that. One thing I don't like is a week 5 bye. I think that's too early, and I'm sure Stefanski, if he's already addressed it, says he doesn't care, and that's fine. He probably has to say that, but that's very early, and it just is kind of unfortunate that I guess the only silver lining is if they get off to a slow start, then that would be a perfect time to have a bye. But all things considered, you'd rather have it closer to the middle or end of the season.
Right. And one final point I'd like to make, particularly on the offensive side. So we know Watson is gonna have to, show what he can do compared to his 6 games last year. He's gonna have the full 17 games, and the Browns, through free agency and draft, brought in new weapons for him. They traded for Elijah Moore. They traded their 2nd-round pick. They did not have their first pick until round 3 when they brought in Cedric Tillman from the Tennessee Volunteers, a big 6'8" wide receiver who's pretty good at, so I've been told, at boxing out defenders and grabbing football. And they also brought in Marquise Goodwin, and a former tight end they got from Houston, the Jordan Atkins, so a former teammate of his, to go alongside David Njoku. And let's not forget Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I think could also play a role in the special teams. And last but not least, your number 1 receiver, Amari Cooper, who with Browns and Watson got to kind of start off and gel together last year. So you got a bunch of new faces and old ones from last year that should be enough to help Watson and the offense, do what they need to get 6s instead of 3s.
Mm-hmm.
And, we hear Stefanski all the time, and I don't think it'd be anything new when the time comes. He's very aggressive when it comes to going for it on 4th down. It can be 1 yard or 8 yards. And post game, whether it's a win or loss, the media always questions him, and he's like, well, we care about 6 points, not 3. And it'll be exciting to see. We know the Browns are looking to transfer from a run first to a pass first team. And that's what the NFL has become for a long time now.
Yeah, I agree. And Cedric is 6'3". He is big, but he's but yeah, they filled that receiver room, and I'm looking forward to seeing who can actually make the roster and make a difference, because I like a lot of the names that they have in that room. And certainly you want all the weapons you can for Deshaun Watson. So I think it's too early to play the schedule game, win-loss, and talk about record just yet. That'll be for a later episode, but we still gotta digest it and wait a little bit maybe this off season. But we're looking forward to the schedule. 2 primetime games. That's, I think, about what most people expected. Obviously, if they do well, they'll add more flex games later in the year. But they have their work cut out for them. So really excited for football season. Maybe after the Guardians go on a run here. All right. Thank you, everyone. You have been listening to another episode of the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast.